Hello, everyone. My name is Camden Hurd, and this is my mortgage and retirement project. I did this project based on my mom because she just recently bought a house and is closer to retirement than I am. So I figured I should be useful to her while I'm living in it. So she bought a house in Buffalo, New York, in the Lackawanna area. It's a normal two-bedroom house, 2 stories with a basement. Just pretty typical stuff. She took it out $160,000 at 5% for 30 years. She did the 30 years because she wanted the payment to be pretty low, to make it affordable as possible. But like the rates have been pretty high recently, so she took out a pretty high rate. And we'll kind of look at the amortization schedule to see how that's going to affect how much interest she's paying versus how much principal she's paying. So if we look at the first payment, this is where it's very noticeable. Only $192 is going to the principal, right? And that amount's only increasing by $1 to $2 a month. So, right, when you have longer term mortgages, it's going to be very front heavy on how much interest you're paying. So, if you're able to make extra payments that go towards that principal, it'll compound over time to have less interest you'll pay. And we'll see how much interest she ends up paying at the end of this. So, if we follow this trend in month 195, so basically over 15 years into the mortgage, that's when you're actually starting to pay more towards the principal than in interest. So it takes a while, but eventually you'll get there. And at the end of the loan, you end up paying around $310,000. So you took out 160 grand and now you're paying 310 grand. Almost double, a little bit less than double, and you end up paying about $150,000 in interest. So even though you want to make the loan affordable in terms of monthly payment, you end up paying a lot in interest and almost doubling the amount of the loan. So let's move on to the retirement for her, right? She's currently at age 50, retirement age around 65, and I just said that life expectancy is 90. We could always move that forward, but I just said 90. And I said annual contribution of 5 grand. That's a little bit less than the max contribution, but she doesn't make the max contribution, and she would have a nightmare and a heart attack if she was doing anything more than that. And the two assets I put into her kind of mimic the 60/40 portfolio, right? So I did a very conservative equity part where it's going to make 6%, right, in returns because we're not calculating into volatility. It's not Monte Carlo, and we did the a 3% for the bond part, a little bit less than what current rates are, but I think if rates go up and down, that it might be closer to 3%. So the first thing we want to look at is how much she is able to save in the first 15 years before 65 when she has to start withdrawing and she wants to quit her job. So if you see here, we actually save about $107,000. So even if you're later in stages of your life, at 50, you can still save a lot with just normal periodic savings. It really makes a difference when you can do that. And even though she will stop this, those assets will still gain interest. And then when you start taking out 5%, right? We come out around a payment around 5 grand, right? And with most of that taken from the equity portion just to make it adjusted correctly. And so we come out with a median monthly withdrawal of about $5,600. That is kind of typical. I mean, it's a little bit less than what I like, and I think you'll be able to live off of, but this should be just one retirement account, right? This could be the 401k or the IRA, but you should have both and maybe your own investments. And who knows, you might be living in a nursing home, so you might have less costs. Um, yeah, and so in the end, at age 90, she ends up with 160 grand more than what she came into because the equity portion of her assets are earning that 6%. That's why equity is so important to hold out throughout retirement, right? So she actually earned something. And even though I would like this number to be less, there's problems with changing the withdrawal rate. It has huge effects on that ending balance when there's a lot of uncertainty at age 90 because of health and other things. So we can actually see the changes. So if we were to, the most extreme is if we were to double the withdrawal rate to 10%, we'll see that we go from having about 120K left over to only about less than 40 grand. So 35 grand left in total, not that much in case of emergency, but you do have about another $500 in yearly spending. That could be a big difference to many people. So this just shows the importance of early saving, investing right, and being smart with your money. I love Excel because something like this I could give to my mom, and then she can just change the parameters I have set at the top, and she can see how little changes in how much she wants to withdraw or how much she wants to save will actually benefit her or hurt her in the future. So that's been my project. It was fun doing it. Thank you so much for listening.